Audrey May Herron was a 31-year-old from Freehold, New York. She was a nurse and mother of 3. On the night of August 29th, 2002, Audrey left her job in Catskill to make the 20-minute drive home. Audrey never arrived. She and her Jeep were never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. I think the public perception is that people often go missing with their vehicles. This belief is probably exacerbated by the work a group like Adventures with Purpose has done over the last couple years, with cameras being there when a car comes out of the water. Yes, the resolutions to those cases are surely fantastic, and I commend those people for their work. However, according to the statistics here at Unfound, and I think the sample of disappearances we've covered is as random as a program can possibly have, the fact is we've only featured 8 out of 230 disappearances where the person and his or her vehicle were missing at the time of the episode. To even get to that number, I included Ben Padilla and his Boeing 727, and the disappearance of Flight 370. If I were to just stick to vehicles without wings, the number is reduced to 6. 6 out of 230. For you business majors, that's 2.6%. That's it. In fact, I had to go way back to November 9th, 2018, almost exactly 3 years ago, for the disappearances of Jansen Brewer and Daniel Braden to find the last time we covered a missing vehicle as part of a disappearance. Why is this so uncommon? I will talk about it after the interviews. I bring this topic up because today we cover the disappearance of Audrey Herron and her vehicle. We're left to figure out what happened as she went from A to B. And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. Audrey Herron was popular. In fact, for this episode, I cannot tell you how many of her friends wanted to talk to me about her and how great a person she was. Audrey had been married before and had a daughter. However, that marriage ended in divorce. Audrey then married Jeff Herron, and they had 2 more children. However, they had a rough patch to the point that Audrey took her first child and left Jeff due to him not treating that daughter the right way. Yet they resolved their differences and were back together for at least a year before Audrey went missing. So on August 29th, 2002, Audrey was at her nursing job at the Columbia Green Long-Term Healthcare Facility in Catskill, New York. At 11 p.m., she walked out to the parking lot with a coworker. They got into their vehicles and left. Nothing unusual at all. Her husband, Jeff, awoke at around 4 a.m. to discover Audrey wasn't in bed, and he started making calls to his father, the healthcare facility, and others in an attempt to find Audrey. But no one had any helpful information. Audrey and her Jeep were never seen again. Well into September of that year, a combination of family, friends, and the New York State Police searched the woods and waterways Audrey would have passed that August night. But they found nothing. Given Unfound's small sample size for this type of disappearance, it's hard to know where to start with a case such as this. Complicating matters is that the two disappearances where vehicles were eventually found after Unfound's coverage, Esther Westenbarger's and Eric Franks's, they're so opposite that no overarching rule can be constructed. So I ask you, the audience, to listen to the following interviews with open minds and try to answer these 3 questions. Number 1, should we believe a statement made by Audrey's father that could certainly mean she really did make it home that night? Number 2, is there any truth to the belief among some of Audrey's friends that she was the collateral damage from a business deal gone wrong involving her husband? And number 3, is it still plausible that Audrey and her Jeep are still in the woods or waterways between Catskill and Freehold despite all the searches done? Audrey's friends and family in general cannot help but think something nefarious happened that night. The guests for this episode are Audrey's oldest child, Sancia Court, and one of Audrey's best friends, Marie Parker. Unfound News. As I predicted, the speaking engagement at Nova Southeastern University last Thursday went awesomely. I even got some applause at the end. Who would have thunk it? I got to meet Dr. Telesco and her assistants, and we had a nice lunch after. I can't wait to visit the school again. By the way, have you watched the highlight video on Dr. Telesco's YouTube channel? You should do so. Next, things are moving along much more efficiently here at Unfound headquarters now that I got a new laptop. I went for an HP this time. That Dell I had been giving me nightmares for at least a few months. The keyboard started going, then it became very slow. I got this HP at just the right time. Finally, there was a hung jury for the Steve Pankey trial. Not surprised. Will there be a retrial? It looks like it. Will I be asked to once again travel to Greeley? I have no idea. When I find out, you'll find out. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on iTunes, Pandora, Audible, Podomatic, Spotify, iHeart, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Deezer, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us for the Unfound Live Show. Watch, ask questions, and give the show a thumbs up. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. I also need to give a huge shout out to all the people who have monetarily contributed using Super Chat during the live show on Wednesday nights. Thank you for watching, and thank you for donating. The email address, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Merchandise, the books at amazon.com in both ebook and print form. Do not forget the reviews. Shirts at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com, or you can track down my assistant Heather in the Facebook group. Playing cards at makeplayingcards.com/sell/Unfound Podcast. The website, theunfoundpodcast.com. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you. A note before the interviews start. There is an accompanying map analysis video for this disappearance. I know many of you choose not to watch those videos. How do I know? I compare the downloads of the episodes to the views on YouTube. For those of you who listen to one but not watch the other, I hope Audrey's disappearance will be one in which you finally choose to change your ways. Thanks. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound one of Audrey's friends at the time, Marie Parker. Marie, welcome to Unfound.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for having us and keeping Audrey's case out there for us.
You're very welcome. That's what I do. Let's talk about you and Audrey. How did you know each other, and how often did you see each other at the time? How long were you friends before she went missing? Let's start there.
Well, we went to school together, different schools, random, but we met when we were teenagers, and then later on in life, right, our daughters were in brownies together, and we were at a mommy and me brownie thing, and we just became fastest of friends for probably about 5 years before she went missing. We were thick as thieves. She was in my wedding, and our daughters were the best of friends when they were young. They were about 6, 7, and then, she went missing when they were about 10.
Okay, so yeah, when people were in each other's weddings, that would mean to me that you were pretty close. So okay, so you got to see quite a bit of her then.
I did.
For about 5 years before she went missing.
Yes.
All right. Okay. How would you explain Audrey to the listeners? Her personality. Maybe you could even compare it to your own. Interests and things like that.
She was the fashion girl, the mall mom. She was the fun mom. I've always used to say that I wish I was half the mom she was. She was 4 foot something of just fun, bubbly, amazing person. She just had a personality that you were drawn to. She was a good girl.
So you would say then that she was pretty outgoing.
She was.
Okay.
She was.
Okay. And I should ask, when you say you were in the wedding, was that the wedding to Jeff?
No. She was in my wedding.
Oh, she was in your wedding. Okay, very good. Yes. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, just wanted to make sure I covered that right.
2 months prior to the day.
Okay.
She disappeared.
All right, thank you. Okay. So she's outgoing, and how big of a group would you say that you had at the time of friends? I know that listeners will know by the time they're hearing our voice that I've spoken to many of Audrey's friends, and off the record, of course. But how big of a group was this back at the time, all of you hanging out?
There was a few of us, Dawn and Mitzi, Karina. She had her set of friends aside from us hanging out, but we were definitely mom friends, good friends. We did a lot of shopping. She actually taught me how to wear my first pair of dress shoes. I'm a construction worker, so she taught me how to dress like a girl.
Oh, look at that. I didn't know that. Okay, that's neat. What were some of her interests, hobbies, things like that?
Her kids, like she was, her and Sancia were, glued at the hip. Her mom was her world. She was a nurse. She was very good to all her patients. She was very caring and loving to just about everyone she made contact with. So,
okay.
I miss her every day. I miss the phone calls of, "Hey, woman, where are you?" So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. And listeners know that I've interviewed Sancia, and her interview will be playing after this one in the episode. Okay, so 5 years, like you said, of close friendship, you seeing her a lot, she's in your wedding, your daughters are friends, like you said, brownies, etc. And I'm glad you brought her job up, because we're going to talk about that next. This job that she had, I've talked to Sancia about it as well. I've already interviewed Sancia, but it was like an on-call per diem situation. Do you happen to remember how long she had been had that job? How long it had been like that? What do you remember about her job?
She worked. It was it was in Jefferson Heights. I can't remember the exact name of the
That's okay.
facility, but she worked there for many years. She was a nurse, registered nurse. Yeah, she loved her job. She was looking forward to getting a long-awaited raise. And yes, she at that time she was working per diem, which means you know it was a schedule that she made, and if you knew her, you knew she was working. It wasn't like she worked 7 days a week, had a full-on schedule. So that week that she was working, she was what they call per diem.
Okay. Do you remember how long she had this job at the time of her disappearance? Can you even take a guess?
I know at least 5 years or better.
Oh, okay.
So
fairly
I'm pretty
long.
sure. I can't be positive, but yeah, she was at, and it's now called the Pines, but yeah, she worked there for quite a long time.
Okay, so at least 5 years, which in I would think is a long time for something like that. Okay, and do you remember how many days a week she worked? How many hours? I realize you weren't following her around 24/7, but could you even guess how often she worked in this kind of schedule?
I think I recall anywhere from 3 to 5. So I don't think she worked 7 days a week at all.
Okay, and would you think this would be 8-hour shifts or 10-hour shifts or any?
They were mostly the 8-hour shifts. I mean, she could have been called to do a double at that time, but yeah, for the most part, I think they were just 8-hour shifts at that time.
Okay. Now, we've talked about Sancia, and maybe since I've already spoken to her, we can, that's on the outline, but since I've spoken to Sancia, maybe we can skip over that. But just very quickly, what would your understanding about the custody arrangement that Audrey had with her, the father of Sancia?
Oh, David, yes.
Yeah.
Sancia's dad is great. They had a amicable friendship, co-parenting. He took Sancia, I believe, every weekend or every other weekend. Holidays. They had a very good relationship.
Okay. Did you know him very well at all? Did you know her when she was still with him, or not?
I knew of him because we live in a small community, but I met him and became more involved, and he's a good friend of mine now. After she went missing.
Oh, okay.
Because I took my daughter over that first weekend, and we sat, and everybody was just blown away, and it was very, yeah.
Okay.
No, David's great.
Okay. Let's move on to her husband at the time of her disappearance. His name is Jeff. Did these two get married before you really knew her well?
They were already married.
Okay.
They were already married and had a couple kids. There's Quinn and Katie and Quinn.
Yeah.
I used to call Katie Chatty Cathy, and Quinn was a curtain climber.
Oh,
at the
okay.
time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
Beautiful family, beautiful kids. Yeah.
Okay, what was your impression of their marriage? If you went over to their house, anything maybe Audrey might have said to you about their marriage at the time, if you can say?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, we at the time were trying to get, my husband at the time, we were trying to get us to get together, get our husbands to like each other and do dinners and stuff like that. But, it never really came to fruition because, we were the ones wanting it. Do you know what I mean? So, but we did a couple dinner dates and went out a few times, but nothing, it wound up being blasted when she went missing.
Okay. So I guess what you're saying is your husband at the time and Jeff didn't sync up too well, so you didn't do that as much as maybe you'd hoped?
No.
Okay.
So you always want your husbands to get along and go to do things, but, that's with every, I think, relationship or partnership. So
Right. Now, Sancia and I did talk about this, so I'll let you know that we did talk about how Audrey and Jeff split up for a time just a
They
couple
did.
years before she went missing. What is your understanding of why that happened?
I'm not really sure. Not really sure. I know there was some animosity of Sancia, but as far as I knew, the story after the fact, they had split up, and then they kind of sort of got back together because she got pregnant for Quinn. And again, all hearsay. Like, I just didn't know that part of it.
Okay. Do you even specifically remember that time? Where did Audrey move to? Where was she living with Sancia when this happened?
When she disappeared?
When they split up for that time, where did Audrey and Sancia go?
Well, it was Audrey, Sancia, and then they had Katie as well. So
okay.
I'm not really sure. Like, okay. Couldn't really tell you, but I know when she went missing, they had lived they were getting ready to move. They were building a house. We actually helped move them. It was like right after my wedding, and they were moving like within a mile down the road to this new house that they had built.
Yeah. It
was a beautiful house, and some unfinished, but yeah, she was getting ready to move at that time.
Okay. All right. So they had split up, and then of course they did get back together, and were all back together at the time of her disappearance in 2002. Yes. Let's
Correct.
talk about Jeff's work a little bit. He and his father owned a golf course.
Yes.
And it was like a golf course and resort put together. So was there like a hotel or something attached to it?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. At the time, it was originally his dad bought it with a silent partner. It used to be Smollinger's, then they turned it into Thunderheart. Like, I didn't know too much about that whole entity. I know that my bridal shower was thrown there. Audrey threw my bridal shower there, but other than that, I'm not a golfer. I don't know. No, but that was their family business.
Well, it sounds like a little bit of a fancy place. Is that how you would portray it? Golf course with a hotel attached.
Much as, like, I mean, we're in the Catskill, so I don't know if it was a fancy. It was a golf course, and I believe there was rooms that you could stay and rent there. I'm not really positive, so I don't know.
All right. Would you say, if you know anything about it, was it popular, and had they been doing this business for a long time?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeff's family, he and his father.
I believe that's where Audrey got married to Jeff. Was there.
Okay.
So yeah, it was. I don't know if fancy is the right word, but yeah, it was a nice place.
Okay. All right. So they had this job. Do you even know here in 2021, is that what they do now? Jeff and his father, do they still run that place or not?
It was actually bought out by another local golf course. Sunny Hill now owns it, but it still goes under Thunderheart. Okay. Whether or not, I think Jeff stayed working there. I don't know. There was a lot of animosity when this all went down, so I know some of it. I don't know all of it.
Okay. All right. So they're running this golf course well before Audrey went missing. And then you've already mentioned the new house, and I've spoken to Sancia about this new house. Were you surprised that they were building a new house at the time when you found out about it? Did that strike you as...
No, it was, I mean, that was pretty much the last, 6 months of before she went missing, that whole year. We were always like, hey, when are we going to move? Because I worked out of town. I was construction, so I always wanted to make sure, hey, when are you moving? Let me help you. I mean, that's what you did as friends, so, yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is the house that they were living in, did they need a new one?
I think the house they lived in was part of the property of the golf course.
Oh.
That's where they lived. It was a decent house, but they were young. They were building bigger and better because, their family was growing.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and Sancia talked about, we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. So let's move on to this. Just some general questions. Any concerns about your very, very good friend, Audrey Herron, in August 2002? Anything that maybe you look back now and say, maybe I should have paid more attention to that at the time. At least that's something that could be connected to her disappearance. Any concerns about her at all, about her work, about her just as a person, anything that she was saying that might have worried you, her relationship with Jeff, any concerns in August 2002?
No, we were in the heat of just getting married and just worried about, the move. She was getting ready to do that. She was wanting this raise, long-awaited raise at the time. And I've always said it, you have a group of friends, and after she went missing, there was certain things that were talked about, how people knew a different side of her relationship with Jeff. At the time, I guess she had found a lump on her breast and was supposed to be going in for that. And I didn't get to talk to her. She was, every time I called that last week, because I was out of town working, I spoke to Jeff. She was at work, so, you couldn't call her at work. You didn't want to bother her at work. But, nothing prevalent until after the fact, and you just start looking and going over and wow, I didn't know that. You always tell one girlfriend one thing, or you keep things, silent. So no.
Okay.
I mean, other than, because we used to joke, and it's so odd, my husband at the time wasn't as fun-loving, and then she was just, some random girlfriend conversations. So no, nothing out of the ordinary that would make a red flag at all.
Right. Nothing that, anything that, so what you're saying is when she went missing, she went missing in August 2002, it was completely out of nowhere. Completely.
For most of us, yeah.
Okay.
Visited,
okay.
There was talk of maybe they had an argument and she kind of took off. But I don't know. The Audrey I knew loved her family, loved her kids. So I can't speak for that.
Okay.
I can't speak for that. So
all right.
I do know that it was insane that it was a last minute, because we were trying to plan the move, and she had called one day. We had just gotten back from our honeymoon, and I'm that person. If you call me, I drop everything and I go. And she wanted to know if I wanted to come help pack things up, and they were getting ready to move. And I said I can't do it today because, of course, we were all in the backyard, And I made plans to go the very next day with the kids after work, and I brought my Jeep at the time. We both had Jeeps. And it was just odd to be hurry up, but things weren't packed. But then again, they only lived a mile apart, so it was just hurry up and throw a few things in. And we were making trips back and forth that day. So that was in early July. So.
Because, I asked you this question about, August and how she was, once again, your assessment at the time, because I think in a lot of disappearances we covered, for example, we cover people with addictions and making bad choices in their lives, and it's very, very sad that these people go missing, and it could be foul play, it could be something else. But I sometimes wonder, maybe it's not that big of a surprise given the very, very thin tightrope that some of these people were walking on. Whereas with Audrey, it sounds like Audrey something totally different.
No, she was not that girl. Nope.
Okay.
Absolutely. For my view, no.
Okay.
She had her life together. She seemed very put together. She was organized, and that's, I think, when you asked me if there was anything out of the ordinary, it was just odd to me that we were hurrying up and things weren't packed. We were throwing dishes and stuff not in boxes. That was just an odd part.
Okay. All right, so let's move up to that day, August 29th, 2002. What do you know about that day of Audrey's movements? And maybe I should even ask you, do you even remember what you were doing that day? Is that still etched in your memory about what you were doing, and then do you know what she was doing?
Yesterday.
Well, let's talk about that. Please, tell us.
It's like yesterday. I was in Binghamton working, and at the time I only had a beeper. I didn't have a cell phone. So my husband at the time, Jimmy, he called. He got my foreman to get me on the phone, and I just remember him saying, "Hey, Audrey's missing," and I kind of laughed a little. I'm like, "Did you check the mall?" Like, because she was always leaving me notes. Like, it used to drive me nuts because she would come pick up Katie, and her and Sancia, they would go somewhere or whatever. So, and it was usually the mall. She, like I said, she was the fun mom. Yeah. I was the working mom. But, and he's like, no, she's missing. And then I thought to myself real quick, because I know Sancia, for some reason, I thought she flew to Florida with her mom, which is Shirley, Sancia's grandmother.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, is she at the airport? Is she picking up Sancia? Because I knew she was coming back. Like, those last couple weeks when I did get to talk to Audrey, she was excited to, Sancia was on a trip with her grandmother. And I don't know why I didn't know that they went in a camper. For some reason, I just thought that she flew down there. It was just, an oversight. And he's like, no, she's missing. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, the police are here. And he explained, and I'm like, I just remember the instant fear, like, oh my God, is she off the road? Did she work last night? Like, because I had spoken to Jeff the night before and she was working. Because, I would get back to my hotel room and I would, call people at home just, because you're out of town working.
Yeah.
So the fear got into me, and I had just told my boss that I would stay the night, because some of us would stay overnight and work out of town. They let me go, and it was a more than a 3-hour drive, normal. When I tell you I took my Grand Am at over 100 miles an hour and was at her door that night, and I walked in, and it was just so surreal. Like, I thought I would get there and, hey, they found her. And it was just an odd.
So you're talking about August 30th. You're actually talking about the next day, August 30th, right?
Oh, no, I'm talking about August 29th. I was there that night.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering how. Okay,
I got the phone call like in the afternoon. It was the end of the workday. It was like 4-ish. So I got to that house. Can't even say, but I know it was dark out. And I was just told that they didn't know. Maybe she took off. Like, it was just odd to see. The 2 police officers, Jeff's dad, his mom and sister were there at the time. It was just so.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused, Marie, because nobody knew she was missing until like 11 p.m. on August 29th. So this all had to have happened.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. They knew that morning. She was working. She went into work Thursday night. So maybe it was the next day. I'm not sure because she got out of work.
Because all the accounts here say that she was supposed to be home around 11 p.m. August 29th. So nobody could have known she was.
That you could be right on that, but
okay.
I know from that 11 o'clock shift to the next, like, I was there within that 24 hours. Like, I got that phone call.
Well, I'm just going to take for granted
calling everyone that morning.
All right, so I'm just going to take for granted then we're talking about August 30th here then. The day after she worked. I'm just going to take for granted because all right. Okay.
It was the day that she was supposed to be home that night. So
okay. Yeah. All right, so that would have been the next day when Jeff starts calling around. You're out somewhere. You fly back in your Grand Am back to the Catskills area where she lived a lot faster.
Oh, yeah, I went directly to her house. Yeah. I was full of concrete in my bandana and work boots and just because I went directly there.
Okay.
And, 20, 30 minutes of, they didn't really know. So I just left there and started combing the roads.
All right, well, let's talk about let's go back a little bit, though. That August 29th, what is your understanding of her working that day?
She was working per diem. You had to know she was working. So, and then you can find out all the information of, she walked out with a couple coworkers. I actually just found out that it wasn't 3 coworkers, it was only 1.
Right. And I spoke to that coworker. I spoke to her.
Yeah. And 30 years later, 20 years later, I'm finding out that was a mistake and an error because for years we thought there was 3 of them that walked out.
Nope, I got to talk to the woman who actually left. I was a little blown away by that, but yes, that. So, but you just a regular work day, you understand for her, and she should have been home fairly quickly from her job.
The 12-mile drive.
Yeah, 12-mile drive. Okay. And so what time, if she gets off at 11, what time do you think that she should have been home that night?
If she was chit-chatting, you're getting ready, you're 11 o'clock, right? You walk out, you're chit-chatting, there's 15 minutes. They say that she might have stopped, so hey, did she stop and get a pack of cigarettes on the way home? Who knows? She should have been home no later than 11:45.
Okay.
To me, anyways.
Okay. So she doesn't get home, and what is your understanding? Once again, we're not going to get into any rumors and theorizing or anything, but what is your understanding, your personal understanding of what Jeff did when Audrey didn't get home at 11:45 or midnight going into August 30th? What do you now know that he did as far as contacting people, driving around, etc.?
Yeah, the main timeline that I know of that's pretty sort of concrete is
yes,
he woke up in the middle of the night. She wasn't home. He didn't, I think he called his dad. There's record of that.
Okay.
Again, don't know for sure.
Okay.
But he called his dad. He assumed that she did an overnight. He started calling back to the facility at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And to me, like, I'm not really sure why he would call if he thought she was staying over. But, and then he started calling the friends. He didn't call the police. I believe it was Audrey's dad and stepmom, Jeannie, because she had worked for the state police. Somewhere around 9:30ish, because he just instantly, when he got the phone call, he thought something was wrong. They called. I mean, like I said, I got that phone call at like 4ish in the afternoon from my husband, because of course he must have gotten home from work and got the message, because I know that Jeff had called certain people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the time there was no real cell phones back then, not mine anyway. So. But to me, and I believe the boots on the ground, I call it, the police didn't get to that facility until around 11:30. So, I mean, a lot of time in my mind went by.
Okay. So your understanding is, once again, he gets up maybe at like 3 or 4 in the morning, realizes Audrey isn't home, called his father, maybe asking what to do. We don't know. But then once the sun comes up and maybe Jeff feels like, other people are up, he starts calling around. And one of those people that he called, at least left a message, was on your phone back at your home, even though you were out of town.
Correct. It was on the answer machine when Jimmy got home.
Okay, very good. All right, and that's how you found out. And once you got off work at 4 o'clock, you drove very, very, very fast back to her house. Is it your then understanding, just want to clear something up, that when he found out that Audrey wasn't home, your understanding is that he did call her work to see if she had left or she was working a double or something like that?
Not initially. He didn't call in the middle of the night, which was odd to me because, after the fact, when we went anywhere, she either had to check in or call, and I always assumed it was, he was checking in, very attentive, but it was odd that he didn't call right then and there. The story goes that he did some dishes. The 2 younger ones were asleep on the floor. There's so many. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But he called, from what I understand, he called at like 6 and 6:30 or something like that, spoke to one of the nurses. Why he called twice, if he called twice, I don't know. But, yeah, so I'm quite sure.
All right, well, we're just establishing here that he did make some efforts to try to track her down and make some calls and some people. All right, okay. So before you get there, and we're going to talk about your own personal searches and what you did, but before you got back there and took that very quick drive, did anybody, to your knowledge, go around looking for her during that morning into the afternoon of August 30th? To your knowledge, anybody go riding around? Did she break down? Did she have a wreck? Did she break down on the side of the road? Anything like that?
That was my initial thought, because many years prior, there was another local town girl that was out drinking or whatever with friends. And for some reason, when they were following her or following each other, she went around a bad turn, because we live up in the country, And she went off the road, and of course no one knew that she was missing until the next day.
Yeah.
And it took them 3 days to find her. So that was my thought, that, oh my God, did she go off the road? Did somebody not see her? So when I left the house that night, I went, and I still can hear myself screaming out the window on Canif Road.
Well, hold on, Maria. I'm asking if anybody else did this. I'm asking before you, you personally, do you have any idea if anybody else did that? Did Jeff go around driving around looking to see if there was a wreck or she broke down? Did his father? Do you and anything about that? Anybody go riding around before you did that?
No, I don't. I can't say yes or no. I know, like, Karina and those guys were trying to call. She had a cell phone, like a bag phone at the time. But do I know if anybody, like, if the police searched? I have no idea to say yes or no. I would assume they did.
Okay.
That weekend, because it was a Thursday, that weekend, Karina, Mitzi, and I had parked at the house.
All right, we're gonna get to that. I'm just trying to follow the outline here, very orderly. All you have to do is follow the questions. All right, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to talk about all of it. I just want to make sure we go in a very orderly. I don't want to keep going back and forth between like August 30th and September something and back and forth. So to your knowledge, though, you suspect, though, on August 30th, before you drove back from that job, other people did go around looking for her. You would take.
I know that police were at the facility that morning after her dad called in. That's about it.
Okay. So. Very good. All right. So they were alerted. So you would say that the police were alerted fairly quickly.
To me, no, not quick enough.
Okay.
Not quick enough, because her dad is the one that initially, called in, and it was kind of hours later in my mind.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we've already covered how you found out. You found out from your husband, now ex-husband, Jimmy, about that, and we know what you did. Once you got involved, what did you do? You get there, and just maybe over the next detail, what you did that August 30th into September, maybe for the next week driving around. What did you do?
That weekend, a couple of us got together. We went to the new house because they were already, I believe, mainly in that house. So, we parked at one car, like we went and walked the road, the back roads from 32 over. And I remember, us yelling for her and walking halfway up into the woods off the side of the road, Karina. And we went to the police station. There was a bunch of us there that were getting interviewed. There was Dawn, there was Nellie, and Karina. Karina was screaming, hey, let's put up a ransom, like let's put up a reward, like what if somebody took her? It was very emotional and like crazy at the time. So as friends, you're only supposed to be able to do so much, like, you don't want to overstep your bounds. So I was still working in and out of town, keeping up with it, and I believe it was October. I had come home, and a lot of the friends, this is not rumor or whatever, this is just a lot of the friends were very upset with how things were going. They suspected right away. Me, I just couldn't see it yet. You know what I mean? Like, how do you accuse someone of anything?
Well,
like,
we don't want to get into any theorizing, but you just thought that the investigation was not going some people thought the investigation was not going the way it should.
Right. So, and I had asked Jeff, I'm like, because I tried to call and check in and, what do you need, So I had come home from work late at night, was watching the news, and there was Ray. I had never met her dad. My daughter went with him. He used to go on trips to go get his rolled cigarettes and stuff. We were talking about going on fishing trips. So there he is sitting there talking about how he would have been out doing certain things that night. He would have been out on the road at 4 a.m. And I just thought, oh my God, like he thinks something's wrong. So I called Karina, and she's like, this is what we're saying. We need to do something. We need to do something. So the very next day I walked into a bank. We put up this crazy, it was a long missing, it was Audrey May Herron reward donation fund. And we started doing a reward fund. We started doing, and I know Jeff or David, you asked about who was out looking for her.
Yeah.
Sancia's dad, like that first weekend, he had been out on his four-wheeler looking.
Wow.
I know he went directly to go pick up Sancia, get her out of the situation. He brought her to the house. It was just so tumultuous and emotional going into that first weekend and those first months. And we were just all floored that, like, wow, we can't find the truck. We can't find anything.
Mm-hmm.
And just the thoughts that went through your mind. I still remember Karina, hey, she didn't get into a car accident. She didn't die of cancer. Like, we need to know what happened. Like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So it was insane. It was insane.
Mm-hmm. So going back to you going up, yelling her name, and you went all over those roads, and I'm going to be doing a YouTube video to show all of this area. So you were going up and down all those roads, trying to find her, a possibility that she wrecked, but nothing that you saw, no one you ran into who...
Yeah, we searched all the roads because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a nurse that said she was following her, which to me still drives me absolutely insane because it was a rainy night. Did you make plan? Like, the story that this one nurse had said, oh, yeah, she was behind me up until halfway up 23. And we did, like, vigils, like, every month, every week. Like, we tried to do vigils at the hospital. We tried to keep it in the news and only get so much time. And I remember speaking to her and finally asking her, I'm like, well, because you're leaving work at 11 o'clock at night. It was rainy. It was dark. And unless you're making plans to say, hey, follow me home, it just didn't make sense to me that she said she was behind her. So did she go to the left? Did she go to the right? They have a lot of, like, oh, on the camera, it looks to be her Jeep. There was so much unknown. And did she go to the right? Like, when I found out that, she might have wanted to go see Sancia. It wasn't unlike Audrey to just go to her mom's to pick up Sancia.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom lived in Selkirk. So I checked all those roads, every possible. And then we did like a search. We got volunteers together. The police did it. I know the FBI was involved within like a week, 2 weeks. They did air searches.
Well, let's talk about the police a little bit. Did they talk to Jeff? Of course, we have to be. We don't do any theorizing on interviews or episodes. But did the police talk to Jeff? Did they give him maybe the once again your belief? Did they give him the once over? Did they try to get him to take, for example, a lie detector test? Did they talk to his father? How much do you think Jeff and other people in his family were looked at as being a possibility in this? How much?
So this is my thing on that, because, and I Jeff was a very, closed off person. Like, he wasn't, as outgoing as Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
He was worried about the kids, and that was, at the time, the kind of story he told. He stayed at the house waiting or what have you. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he did. I know that they took him for the lie detector test, whether it was inconclusive or not. I know the one main sergeant, I cannot remember his name for the life of me. He was the main sergeant at the time. He said that Jeff was cooperating up until his dad had got him a lawyer, and then everything went silent.
Okay.
And it made that error that everybody looked at Jeff and nothing else.
Okay.
Nothing else. There was no, hey, let's go see if she's off the road. Like, we searched all that, but it just left a bad taste in your mouth, for a better way of putting it.
Okay. For example, do you have any knowledge if Jeff and his father, anybody else in their family, ever did what you did? Driving around, walking these roads, trying to figure out, once again, just as an example, possibility that she might have swerved off the road on the way home. Do you happen to know of any work that they did just like you and these other friends did? Did they do that too?
I do not know. The only one I know that did ramping was Sancia's dad. He was on a four-wheeler. He went through the woods. As far as that, no. I can't say yes or no to that, so I don't know.
Okay. In your opinion, of course, you continue to still work on Audrey's disappearance to this day. That's why you're on the program. But how long would you say law enforcement really, really, was working on it before they were like, you know what, we really don't know what to do? How long would you say that took?
Well, I mean, that first 6-9 months, that first year, we
Mm-hmm.
were heavily like getting, the reward together. Like they did press conferences. There was at one point somebody called in once we put the reward out. They checked a local salvage company. It was Wolfie's Garage, I think. We had thought a couple times where, oh my God, we might find it. Chop shop. All
Yeah,
the rumors.
sure.
But as I've always said it, like if no one comes forward with anything, with a box of donuts or a set of keys to that Jeep, they really had nothing to go on.
Okay.
And I know that the team, especially Bill Fitzmaurice and the main team, they were stumped. They tried everything. I think they did their job. I mean, as far as it goes, it becomes cold pretty quick when you have nothing.
Yeah.
But I keep in contact with Bill all the time. I'm the crazy one. But,
well, you should know, I'm going to say this on the record. We're doing this, we're doing this interview on Halloween of 2021, and I'm still trying to reach Sergeant Fitzmaurice. He's not called me back yet. I've left messages with him 4 times. But I still have some time because this interview will be coming out November 12th. So I still have some time. And I also I'm going to speak to Detective Callahan as well.
Yes,
All right, so I'm going to try to reach both of them.
Over the years, the original sergeant had retired, and I know when he retired, he was just devastated that they still didn't have anything, to go on or give to the family. And Ray has died. He's been gone almost 10 years, maybe 11. I think he died in 2009. Jesus. So.
Who is Ray?
Ray is Audrey's dad.
Oh, okay. All right. One more thing before we move on to some other topics. At the time, not here in 2021, but initially in 2002, one of your best friends doesn't come home and you're searching for. What did you initially think happened to her? Not now, and try to think back to 2002. What did you initially think happened to her?
Oh, I absolutely thought she went off the road.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely thought she went off the road, and it just,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We scoured everything, so, I think whatever happened to her,
okay.
She would never pull over for anybody because she used to yell at me. I used to pick up hitchhikers back then, and she used to yell at me. Like, we would park our vehicles. She would drive with me most times. I was one of those that, didn't like to be driven around. But, nope. I think whatever happened to her now, because we can't.
Yeah, we're not going to theorize. I just wanted your initial impression from 2002, and I think that maybe changed a little bit. But once again, I don't think we want to get into that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
My initial thought was she was off the road and we missed her.
Okay. That's I think
that's it was a rainy, stormy night. Like, there's back roads. Like, it's only 12 miles, but anything could happen. So that was my thought, that the car went off the road, because she was a good driver. But at the time, oh my gosh, she went missing. You know what I'm saying? But we never found the vehicle. There was thought that somebody was hiding in the vehicle or whatever, but that would happen. There would have been a fight ensued or whatever. So it just became something else.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Maybe you can explain, you just maybe did that. Let's just talk about that a little bit more. Maybe explain to anybody who hasn't been in this area, that Route 23 and then going north toward her house. What is that area like? These back roads, 2-lane roads. How would you explain them? I'm guessing you drove them many times yourself. Would you say that they were dangerous? What would you say?
Not really to someone who lives here. So the main road leaving out of the facility was, well lit, whatever. You got onto the bypass, which was like a kind of like a highway or mini highway. That was maybe 5 miles up, 7 miles maybe up, and then another 5 miles home. So it was main road, other than the 2 back roads that she might have cut over to get to her house. Were they a little loopy, around if you didn't know them? Yes. But I mean, she traveled them. They were well traveled by her. She was experienced to go that way. So, but was she tired? Some people work, like all those thoughts. That was as you said, that was my initial thought.
Okay, yeah. But, okay, if you could, and I realize everybody should understand Maria is kind of on the road right now, and I appreciate her giving us some time to do this interview, but off the top of your head, could you explain the route you believe that she would have taken home that night?
She would have come out of the facility, took a left-hand turn, went up about maybe, it's not even a mile,
Okay.
made a left-hand turn onto 23B. I think it's 23B. It's a double-lane highway. Midway up, there's like, a main, you could go into Carroll. So there was a Stewart's, well-lit. They think maybe she would have stopped there. Then you go straight up. You take a right-hand turn onto Route 32. If she went all the way down to the town and made a right-hand turn onto 67 and went up to her house, that's one way. There's halfway up, though, there is a turn, Caniff, into Plattekill, and then you would scoot over to the house.
Okay. All right, so you think there's maybe a couple different choices there?
There was two if she went that way.
Okay.
But again, still haunts me that no one went the other direction. Like, what if she went and turned on to get onto 9W, to scoot over to her mom's to see Sancia?
Okay.
So,
and once again, thank you for that, Maria. I appreciate that. And for the listeners, I will be doing.
If they didn't look the other way.
Yeah, and I'll be doing a YouTube video to show some of these routes in that area that you've just described. So I appreciate that. As far as maybe I want to ask you this regarding the police. I know that you and her friends, and many of these friends I've spoken to as well, went up and down the roads. What about the police? Did they get some maybe more experienced searchers involved? Maybe going a little farther off the roads. What do you know about that?
They searched the bodies of water. They had divers in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and over the years they've checked. Like a few years ago, there was a tip called in by someone off a Catskill. Like, there's so many different roads right along that highway, that 23. She would have never taken them. That would be insane for her to do that. If she turned off on Caniff, yes, I can see that. But and there's a main, like, it's called Woodstock Dam. It used to be a swim hole. There is, and I'm pretty sure it's dead on that there was a camera at JR's.
We're gonna talk about the camera here in a bit.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to that. That's fine. We'll get to it in a moment because I want to talk about cameras just in general. But I want to bring up something you brought up before about Audrey herself. Did you know that she had a doctor's appointment on that next day, August 30th?
I did not.
You did not? How did you find that out? When did you find that out?
Within that first week or so, like the girls, you tell one girlfriend one thing, and in amongst the things. So no, I didn't know about that until that first week. It was in conversation. Everybody was questioning, where did she go? How did she go?
Okay.
You're asking a million questions.
Okay, and of course now in 2021, and I talked with Sancia, but was it news to you that Audrey might have found a lump on her breast?
Yes.
Okay, she hadn't told that to you. You didn't find that out until after she went missing.
Correct.
Okay, so, and we don't know what that means. It could have been something bad, but I think my knowledge of this, sometimes a lot of these things are misdiagnosed and it ends up being nothing. But she was supposed to be going to like a follow-up appointment the next day. Of course, she did not show up. But that was news to you that she had this doctor appointment. This whole topic was news to you until well after. You didn't
Pretty
know.
much within the next couple days, because you get talking about where she could have went. The main thing was, hey, did she go to her mom's? So we went that route just to see if, because she was down in Selkirk on.
Do you think if she was having some sort of health issue, do you think that that's something that Audrey would have told you right away, or was she kind of the person to keep things under wraps? What do you think?
I think she would have. So again, I think because she was working, I was working, and got the random weekly checkup or a couple days. I think she would have checked first. She was not one to be alarming about things.
Okay.
So I think she would have checked first and then kind of told. I think it was her mom maybe that told me that she had an appointment, or maybe Karina. But yeah, I don't think she would be that alarming. She would find out first.
Okay. All right. Now you've brought this up, this video, and once again, in the YouTube video I will show where this place is. When did you first hear, and I've not seen this video, I don't think you've seen this video.
No.
But when did you first hear about this video that might have shown her Jeep on it? When did you find that out, and what have you been told it shows?
So within the first couple weeks there was, and this is how they said it, what looks to be Audrey's Jeep leaving the facility, because there's a Cumberland Farms right there at the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
They say they think that's her vehicle leaving, right?
Okay.
And then I want to say maybe a few months later, I don't think initially, but they had it where there was a camera halfway up 32 where JR's Automotive is.
Mm-hmm.
It looked to be what was a parked SUV, and it was raining, and it was stopped right there on the bridge.
Huh.
So, and I knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, I went. People would call. Over the years, I've gone everywhere, in the woods. So we had gone to what is called Indian Ridge Campground. This lady had thought, she was there in this spot, so I go and I follow. So we went down to this place of that campground was the guy that owned JR's.
Okay.
So we were in there not on season, so I was kind of trespassing. So we saw him coming up, and I let him know why I was there. And he told me who he was, and I'm like, oh my God. So can you verify? And this was about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And he verified that, yes, there was a videotape of what looks to be a black SUV on that bridge from his point of view at the garage.
Okay.
So that I know is in existence.
Does anything else? I mean, does the Jeep just sit there, or does it leave? How long is this video? Did he give you any particulars, any really intricacies of it?
Not really. So, because it was like, oh my God, I'm trespassing, and we just quick talked, and I told him who I was, and yeah, he verified that there was such a tape.
Okay. Now, I know that you continue to have a connection with the New York State Police, who are responsible for this disappearance, and have you ever asked them about it?
I think so. I think I've asked Bill about it, yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely something there.
Okay.
But they're only allowed to say so much, you know what I mean?
I understand that. Usually, though, I guess, and you surely understand this too, Marie, because I know that given that you've been working on Audrey's disappearance for 19 years, I know you take interest in other disappearances too. It's kind of, this is the way it works. But usually, videos of cars of missing people are usually released to the public. But this one has not been. Of course, I've not been able to find it anywhere.
No, I don't think it was ever released. I mean,
any insight into that?
Only family and relatives can do so. So
any insight into that? Why it hasn't been released? In talking to him, has he ever, being that I haven't gotten to speak to him yet, have you ever specifically asked him why that video has never been released to the public? Have you ever asked him that?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. All right. Well, when I get to talk to him, I am going to ask him that, and I'll tell you what his answer is. Okay. So we have this video. Not sure what to make of it, but it is a big topic in Audrey's disappearance, and this would be a video that would have caught, if it is her and her vehicle, a little more than halfway home. Is that what you would say?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
about a little more than halfway home. Okay. Once again, this is probably one, listeners, that I know some of you don't go and watch those YouTube videos with the maps and things. This is probably one that you should take it seriously to do that. Okay. So we have this video. Do you happen to know if they went to any other businesses closer to where she was working, like a convenience store or an ATM machine?
They did. Like I said, the Cumberland Farms at the entrance of the facility when she left, they say, again, this is how they put it, what looks to be her vehicle. I'm not sure if they captured the actual license plate, but, the car's leaving at the time of that. So they say that, she was at that entrance and going. So whether that exists or not, I don't know.
Okay.
So not privy to some things. And of course, they're not going to give away certain things.
That's true.
They're not going to accuse, like, you can't. So
that's true.
that's the thing that bothers me the most. I mean, everybody focused on, did she make it home because they say she's halfway up? Did she go down? You don't know.
We don't know.
Go a different direction.
But
that is, yeah.
All right, but for our knowledge here on Halloween 2021, there's at least one for sure video of her, and that's her leaving work. And then there's just this other one that might be her in her vehicle, as far as we know, all these years later. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this. And really not sure how to handle this, but was Jeff and his father, and this is out there, this is not something I'm just pulling out of the air, but if you read about Audrey's disappearance in certain places, a lot of talk has been made of who Jeff and his father were in business with. In fact, you've already kind of in passing mentioning this silent partner. At the time of Audrey's disappearance, were there problems there?
None that I knew of, but I just remember Jeff telling me about how Audrey witnessed something about, one, and again, they call them the Russians, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody grabs onto all the rumors.
Mm-hmm.
If that was the case, in my mind, so, like, because I just look at things black and white. The rumor of it was, oh my God, the Russians did something.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of research. There was a silent partner that bought it, and I could be wrong. So there was a silent partner. His name was Gary Radzinski. He bought into Smollinger's, which became Thunderheart with Ron. And at one point, there was a conversation about, how Audrey witnessed, an argument going on or what have you. And that's when it came out. And I'm like, wow. So your family was in danger? Like, to me, if there was really a Russian theory, I would not be keeping my family home and still working at the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that Russian thing is a rumor. Like, it's a crazy theory. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would they target her? So,
I understand, and I kind of agree with you. And once again, I don't want to get too deep into theories, but the most importantly, did Audrey ever talk to you one-on-one about this particular topic?
No.
Did she ever say, you know what, I saw something, I think something weird's going on, anything like that regarding any business dealings at the golf course at all?
No, there was only because there was a fire.
Yeah.
I think that same year, or maybe the winter before, I believe it was in wintertime, the pool house at the time, or restaurant, whatever it was, I can't really say exactly what it was, but there was a fire at the golf course, and we made mention of it. Oh my God, what a tragedy. In passing, in conversation. It was never like, oh my God, I'm worried about anything. Just, there was a fire at, her husband's business. So,
okay. Yeah. So what you're saying is maybe some people, knowing that she went missing and knowing about this fire, started to wonder, are those two connected?
Yeah. I mean, we live in a small town. Like, you grab onto all kinds of theories. And, like, again, it drives me insane that a lot of people have the air that she made it home. Oh, my God, did, something happen at home? So that whole thing, nobody looked at any other option. To me, anyways.
Okay.
So,
that's what we need. That's why I'm talking to you. You were there. You knew her.
yes.
You were there from the very earliest hours, of anybody except for Jeff, who was the first person to realize she wasn't home. And I realize there's going to be people who are suspicious of Jeff, and I understand that. Okay, so that's why you're getting interviewed, of course.
Yeah.
And all your
Jim Viola was what you said. I am connected with a lot of missing person families. Yeah. Jim Viola. I mean, he was a dead fast. He was one of the ones that would help us make videos and come to our bike run, and all our fundraisers. He was viciously attacked. And it turned out 10 years later, she had fallen into the ocean and found in a different.
I remember that. I know that disappearance. Yeah.
Someplace else, so.
I know that disappearance. In fact, I will make sure
it's a given that the husband is the first one. So.
Yeah. And I'll make sure the listeners know what you're talking about if they've not heard of that disappearance that ended up being a death, but it not believed to be a murder. I know about that. I do know.
Yes.
I think there might have been like a 20 years ago or something, 15 years ago, there might have been a 48 hours or some TV show on it. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All
So
right. Now, I wanted, you already mentioned her kind of, but I just want to make sure we cover this a little more structured. There was a woman who said that she left with Audrey and they got on the road together and she saw the headlights go off the road or something like that. That story ended up being not true.
correct. So I actually got to finally meet her at one of the vigils that we had,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm pretty intense when I'm asking questions, and she just kind of said, "I really don't know. I just want to help find her." So to
Mm-hmm.
me, I was I was angry when she finally just said, because again, when you're leaving somewhere, unless you're saying, "Oh, hey, I'm going to follow you," the point of saying that she was behind her, it made everybody
Yeah.
think, "Oh yeah, she was
Yeah.
at this point," and she
Yeah.
just wanted to be part of the
Yeah.
the excitement of her missing. She wanted to be part of it, and to me, that rendered looking for, like, I was so upset. Like, why would you say that she was behind you when you know definitely she wasn't? Like,
Mm-hmm.
she just wanted to be part of helping find her coworker. I get it, but it made such a dent, like, the wrong way. And I
Yeah.
didn't I
I
didn't get to
know.
speak to her till like
Yeah.
6 months later. But I remember thinking to myself, unless you know, like, and I did. I went and did that whole thing at night. Like, you're not going to see anybody behind you unless you're following each other. You're leaving work. You don't have no plans. So to say that, oh yeah, she was behind me at under duress or just trying to be part of the investigation, she rendered everything.
Yeah. Right. In
She was behind
contrast,
me. She
as you,
had no real
yeah,
recollection of it. It was
yeah,
just, I saw her, and she just wanted to say that she saw her. Do you understand what I'm
I
saying?
do. Hey, I talk about that a lot. Absolutely, I
Yeah,
know
it
what you're
drives
talking
me.
about.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
angers me sometimes.
I
It
know, me
angers.
too. Absolutely, for sure. In contrast, as you know, Maria, I've already told you, I've gotten to speak to a woman who actually did leave the facility with Audrey that night.
Yes, Samantha.
And yeah, right. And she said it was like she said she really didn't know Audrey that well, but they didn't normally leave the work, together often. But she says, yeah, I saw her, and she said there was nothing unusual at all. She said our cars were not parked close to each other, so kind of split, ways, but she saw her leave. She left. They went their separate ways, but she said there was nothing unusual at all. And
Yeah,
I just happened to run into that.
Audrey was parked under a light right there on the
Mm,
corner of the facility. So,
hmm
people thought, oh, was there somebody hiding in the
Yeah,
Jeep? And yeah, so no. And Samantha, actually, her sister Nellie is one of our main
yeah,
group
I know.
friends at the
I've
time.
spoken to him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've spoken to her. That's how I just kind of happened upon speaking to Samantha slash Sammy. Okay.
yeah,
So, just for the
correct.
listeners, even though there is this story about a woman lying who was working with her, there is a real story regarding another coworker, I think, that we believe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Jeff. At the time, did you speak to him about or Audrey's? Did you speak to him about Audrey's disappearance? What did he have to say when you finally talked to him? I mean, he's the husband of one of your best friends. What did he say back in
No, he was,
2002?
you know, kind of on the silent end, just, hey, we're doing okay. I would check in, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
day, because I was her best friend. Like, people know me. Like, I'm kind of like a bear. So
Mm-hmm.
I did ask him, hey, I'm her friend. I have to ask you, did you do something?
Yeah.
And I, chickenly asked it, and I thought maybe he would get mad at me. He didn't say no, didn't say whatever. He just said, no, you know me better than that. And I left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Then all the innuendo of, hey, did she make it home? Like, and I tried to keep in contact, but I guess I'm an intimidating person, and I just wouldn't let it go. And I didn't get to see the kids. I got to, of course, see Sancia, because
Yeah.
Dave was
Yeah.
good about that.
Right.
I was the oddball out, screaming all the time, and Did I upset anybody? I don't know, but to this day, if my daughter went missing, I would be all over Joshua until I knew exactly what happened. So that's just me.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I wish I didn't ask so hard, but I had to ask.
Of course
just like
you
her
did.
dad.
Of course you
We
did.
had to ask. We had to ask, and, we didn't get very good answers, and we did what we did, and here we are 19 years later with no more than just, back rumors in your head and what the hell happened.
Yeah. In your opinion, would the neighbors, now, is your understanding she would have been, if Audrey did make it home, she would have been going to the new house or the old house?
The new one.
The new one. In your opinion, being that you know the area very well, had she pulled in there, just saying, had she pulled in there that night, would there have been neighbors or anyone who would have seen that or been able to see that, headlights, anything like that?
No, their house they've got a pretty long driveway off the road, and there's road frontage. There's not really too many houses next to each other there. So it's pretty rural on that road. So no.
All right. So in your opinion, would you say that it would be possible for Audrey to go home that night without anyone else seeing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I have looking for her.
All right, because
11 o'clock at night, maybe. Yeah, no.
All right, because I have to ask you this because was in a news story. I would never usually bring something like this up, but being that it was in an official news story, I have to bring it up. There is a quote that shortly after, I think this is Audrey's father. Shortly after Audrey's father got a call from Jeff, he said he was shocked to find his daughter Audrey's purse, credit cards, and cigarettes inside the new house. Have you ever read that? That's in an official article. Do you know about that?
I do know about that because her purse, I don't know if her cigarette's there, but her purse was one of the things I eyeballed on the table when I was there that night. And there was, I believe it was Jeff, his father, and either one or two investigators sitting at the kitchen table. And I was kind of in the living room, but I could see the eye shot. So yeah. And I'm not a purse girl, but Audrey was.
So how then do we explain that? Are we? I guess one of her purse. Once again, my impression is women usually have more than one purse. Usually, maybe you're not like that, Marie, but that's my impression. Are we sure that this is the purse? Could she have taken another purse to work? Because that is a very, very damning statement.
It's the one of the things that makes it like, oh my God, did she make it home? Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you. So you know about this story, and being that the purse is sitting right there in front of everybody, what did everybody have to say about that?
Again, there's where all the innuendo went.
All right.
That's where all the rumors started and the thoughts like, oh my God, the suspect. But yeah, it was very, to me, odd that it was home. I'm not a purse girl, but she was.
All right. Well, I guess what I'm asking, Marie, just to be very as blunt as I can be, her purse and credit cards are sitting right there. Did not somebody, being that y'all were there, just not somebody asked Jeff, well, if she didn't get home last night, why is her purse and credit card sitting here? Nobody, if everybody's there, like you said, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but...
No, I didn't ask that. That was a thought after the fact. I was shocked. Like, that was the initial night. But yeah, that's been a big conversation piece throughout the whole thing.
All right. So in your opinion, that statement that Audrey's father made is true. That happened.
It is absolutely true. Absolutely true that he saw her, the purse. And I think it's on the police report. We're not privy to it, but yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the...
All right, because
proven facts, so yes.
Okay, because sometimes, on the other hand, sometimes family members make things up, just to kind of boost the investigation along. In your opinion, this is not that.
No.
So this story regarding these things being seen, we must then take it to be true, and that is interesting. Okay. Jeff's father, have you ever spoken to him one-on-one regarding Audrey's disappearance? And of course, he did this interview with Crime Watch Daily. What did you think of that interview?
put me on the spot, but I thought it was very pompous and just out of the ordinary for the way his demeanor was. So.
Okay.
And again, there's a lot of rumor that follows in and around that. So, no, I have never really spoken to him one-on-one.
Okay. And you did, and I will be linking to this interview, this Crime Watch Daily part of the interview, I think, so people can judge it for itself. All right. So, some things here I have to ask, being that you've had contact with the police, have you ever specifically asked them about going back to that purse and the credit cards, etc.? Have you ever asked them about that?
Probably, most definitely. I was probably a thorn in their side the first couple years. I was always going down there, dropping off flyers, asking what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right, but obviously,
I'm hoping Bill gets to you. And
I'm hoping so too.
The investigators.
I'm hoping so too, because I'm going to ask him about that. I'm going to ask him about this video. I'm going to ask him about the purse and credit cards and everything else. Those two things 19 years later seem very, very, very important. One more topic that I've seen that I want to cover with you. Any proof that at the time of her disappearance there might have been a coworker or someone who kind of had a crush on her, infatuated with her? Maybe we might even use stalking her. Any proof of that?
So again, there's another rumor mill that was started. We went to, I tried every news agency, so we went to Montel Williams. I don't know if you've ever gotten to see that clip. You can look it up. Sylvia Brown had put it out in there that, there might have been some kind of affair going on, a tap and bump, what have you. You'd actually have to watch the video. It was kind of insane when she said it.
Okay.
But yeah, so again, once things are said, everybody takes it their own way, and it's like a runaway train. All
right, so in your opinion, where this got started was on Montel Williams with a psychic?
I think so. I mean,
okay.
I know the first initial day, because we hired a private eye that was, just a retired cop, and he went and interviewed a bunch more people at the facility. There was actually technically 51 people that were working that night that didn't get investigated, right? So, but there was talk, the first officers on scene, and again, this is hearsay, but the first officers pretty much on scene were overheard thinking, because Audrey was a beautiful girl. Oh, maybe they got into a fight. Maybe she had a boyfriend. Maybe, she just took off. So that's, again, another thing that starts the rumor mill of suspicion and all that other stuff.
Right.
Did she have a boyfriend? To my knowledge, absolutely not.
Okay. And it should be known.
Dedicated wife, mother, and daughter, and sister. So, and a very good friend of mine.
And it should be known that this woman who left the facility that night with Audrey, I asked her about that, and she said she had no idea that there was anything going on between Audrey and anybody there, any person there, man or woman, took an interest in Audrey at all. That she said,
right.
I did not see that. That's news to me. So,
yeah,
okay.
That's absolutely. I think it was a rumor that was started a few years ago, more so than it was 20 years ago when there was something thought of on Catskill Road. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Marie, how has this affected your life? I'm going to guess that probably in the late 90s that you could have never, of course, expected that Audrey would go missing. And, of course, you could have never suspected that you'd be so deep into a missing persons case, at this point in your life. How has this affected you?
I'm not going to lie. I was so obsessed with it that it kind of took apart my first marriage and probably affected every relationship I've had since then. It affected my kids. I can't explain to you the feeling we can't find her, and I feel like I failed her as a friend.
Yeah, that's a common thing among friends and family that I talk to on the program. It's very common.
I need to know, as Karina used to, she stated it.
Yeah.
Dead fact. She didn't die of cancer. She didn't die of a car accident. You know, we don't know that she was murdered or whatever happened. We have nothing. And I think sometimes the nightmare of that is worse because it all plays out in your head.
Right. Right. I know that you're still very close, that group from the early 2000s. When all of you talk, how often does Audrey's name come up? And are you even able to talk about her without mentioning her disappearance? I mean, can you even talk about something that occurred back at the time and then not mention the disappearance? Or does it...
That's a firm no, because, I mean, anytime she's mentioned. I mean, we literally just went 2 weekends ago because someone sent in like this picture. They thought she was down by this creek, and the three of us went out looking for 3 hours a few weeks ago, just random on a back road. So it's prevalent. It's all the time. There's not a time when we don't get together and laugh about something she would have done, would have said. And we're watching her kids. You know what I mean? I don't get to see the two younger ones as much because of all the animosity, but Sancia was kind of like my kid too. And not going to lie, sometimes I feel guilty that I'm getting to see her grow up and her mom is not. She's getting ready to be married next year, so...
Yeah, I know. We talked about it, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I try to keep up with her. You know, we message, we talk about, you know, getting a hold of you, getting a hold of other agencies, you know, what can we do this week or this month? And, you know, it's not every day that I get to talk to Sancia. She moved to Arizona, but I mean, we're Facebook, you know, we keep in touch, and her mom would be so proud of her.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I feel guilty that I get to see it and Audrey does not.
Right. Well, I can tell you, having spoken to, this is the most probably the friends I've ever spoken to in any disappearance case that I've covered, but certainly, Audrey Herron had and still has a great group of friends who continue to care about her, and I think that all of you should be very proud of yourselves, because I will tell you how many disappearances I've covered where friends have moved on, they aren't doing anything. That's common. So that all of you are still doing this all these years later is so commendable. You know, it's very special. And I want you to know that, Marie. I really do.
I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Just, her sister-in-law, Michelle, used to say it all the time, always in our hearts. So I can't think of any other statement, you know.
Marie, any final words before we complete this interview?
I'm hoping if anyone out there hears this podcast, they look it up. I'm hoping someday the cowards, monsters that have had anything to do with this, grow a conscience, put it to rest. I don't even care if we know your name, if you know something, because I've said it time and time again. Someone, somewhere knows or saw something. You don't just take a human being and a vehicle and it just disappears. Someone knows something. So I would beg of anyone, stranger or not, you know, keep looking for her, because we need to bring her home regardless of how the outcome comes.
And Marie, I'm going to continue to try to reach these two officers at the New York State Police, Fitzmaurice and Callahan. And when I do and I get to talk to them, I will be passing along to you and to Sancia what they had to say. You know, I have, obviously, I think some of the questions or topics that we've had in this discussion will be questions I ask them. Hopefully I'll get some good answers. And I will surely let you know what they say regarding them. And I hope you, on the other hand, will keep me, I hope you will keep me apprised of what you continue to do regarding Audrey's disappearance.
Absolutely. I mean, we have put out the flyers again for the hunters. I mean, you know, someone can walk across something.
Absolutely.
You know, we're hoping to get Adventures with a Purpose to come out. We're always trying. Like, I will never, ever stop searching for that girl.
Okay. Marie, I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
God bless you for keeping her out there. I truly appreciate it.
You're very kind, Marie. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome. And now my interview with Audrey's oldest daughter. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the daughter of Audrey Herron, Sancia Court. Sancia, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you.
Got to start here. You have a very unique name, and I know your mother gave it to you, and of course she is the topic of this episode. Do you know where she got that name?
Yeah, so actually my grandfather, my mom's father, wanted to name her Sancia, and I don't think my grandmother was too fond of the name, actually, so she ended up with the name Audrey, and then when she had me, she named me Sancia.
And do you know where that, I talked to a lot of people being 51 years old, Sancia, but I've never come across a Sancia before. Do you know where it comes from?
Yeah, it's American Indian.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. We have our first Sancia ever on Unfound. It's very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. It's because we've had some people with unique names on the program, and I always feel like I have to ask that because I know the audience is going to be like, "What is that woman's name, and how did she get that name?" So, okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for that. Okay. Now, of course, you were 10 years old at the time of your mother's disappearance. So, what do you remember about her? Being 10, you two doing things together. Of course, you have other siblings, but just you and her.
Are you looking for like specific memories, or just like what I remember?
Just feelings. Yeah, maybe specific memories, but just feelings back at the time. What do you remember?
I remember me and my mom were very close. Whenever she would go out and do anything, I was always with her, whether it be, grocery shopping or going to the mall or going to spend time with her girlfriends. I was always with her. She was really involved in whatever I had going on at school. I was in Girl Scouts, and she, wasn't a troop leader or anything, but whenever we had an event or like a camping trip, she was always volunteering to help out. Whenever we had anything going on at school, any events, she would volunteer. So I just remember her being very involved, and we were close.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's not a whole lot that I don't remember about her in the sense of her being my mom.
Right. Would you say, as a parent, laid back or more strict, somewhere in the middle? What would you say?
She was not super strict, but she definitely expected me to behave a certain way, and expected me to do well in school, and I wasn't allowed to have a lot of excuses. She expected me to perform a certain way, and also if I got in trouble, if she was punishing me, it would be I was grounded, or video games were taken away for a week. She stuck by it. She never faltered. So. Okay.
All right. Let's just now talk about that year, specifically 2002. Of course, once again, 10 years old. Anything that you remember specifically about it? Anything that went on that year that really sticks out? Of course, in a positive way.
The main thing that sticks out about that year is we had just moved into a new house that my stepfather, Jeff, had been working on for years. And we had just moved into that it was a brand new big house on a pretty chunk of land. So it was pretty exciting to be moving out of our old house.
Yeah, did you get like your own room, and was that a big change for you as far as your bedroom and your playroom or and other things? Big change?
Yeah, I always had my own room before that, but now it was a new room that was painted, the color that I wanted. So that was nice.
Okay, what color was that?
I think it was pink at the time, which is funny because I don't really like pink now.
Well, things changed, Sancia. Okay, so pink, had your own room, big house. How far away was that house from your old house?
Gosh, only like a mile, maybe.
Pretty close.
If that.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that a house that was built from scratch, or did somebody owned it before, and he like did improvements on it? What was it?
No, he built it from the ground up. I remember
Wow.
when it was just a hole in the ground when he was
Uh-huh.
just, digging out the basement.
Wow.
So, yeah, he built it from the ground up.
Okay. And how long do you remember how that took?
I don't remember, but I know it took over a year. I feel like in my kid brain at the time, it felt like it was years, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Okay. All right. So you excited? Bigger yard for you to play in, and
Oh yeah, yep. There was a nice big yard, and there was a pond in the back, so that was nice.
Okay. All right. So you moved in this house, and do you remember? Of course, we know that she went missing August 29th, 2002. Can you remember how long you were in that house before your mother disappeared?
Not very long at all. I think we moved into the house in July.
Oh, so pretty fast.
Yeah, it was either June or July, and then I went to Florida with my grandmother, so
Yeah.
I don't think I was even in the house for a month before I left.
Right, and we'll of course talk about that. Okay, so not long, maybe at the most like a month and a half then, maybe, before you moved in there.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe even less. Okay. And do you know what was going on with the old house? Did Jeff eventually sell it or something after your mom went missing, or did they rent it out? Do you even know?
I honestly have no idea. I don't even know if he owned that, if him and my mom owned it, or if they were renting it themselves.
All right, that's a good question. Okay, thank you. All right, so that was the big thing. I think that would be a big thing for anybody at any age, moving from old house into new house, and especially if it was a brand new house. And certainly that's a big deal for anybody. Okay, being that you brought him up, and Jeff, what kind of stepdad was he? Of course, your mother got married to him. You have a different father, but you knew him, of course, for quite a while before your mother went missing. What kind of stepdad was he?
I thought he was a good stepdad. He was strict. Definitely expected me to behave a certain way. I think more so than my mom did. But he was always doing stuff with us. He would come home from work and we'd play basketball, or we'd play video games together, or watch a movie. He'd go to Boston with me and my mom. We went on a couple little trips like that. But he was more on the strict side, and definitely expected me to behave to a certain standard, I would say.
Okay. Being that you were another man's child, did you go see your other father often? Were there like some sort of custody arrangements with your biological father and everything? What was the setup at the time? Do you even remember?
Yeah, my dad would have me every other weekend, and then him and my mom would share holidays. So I think they would kind of rotate. So, if mom had me Christmas this year, next year dad would have me, and then they would do the same for Thanksgiving.
Okay. And did your dad live in the area, like near Catskill, New York, or somewhere around there?
He always lived in like Ravenna area, so which isn't far from where my mom lives, probably 25 minutes maybe.
Okay. All right. And so you kind of had your stepdad, and then your father was very much involved in your life, and we'll talk about him a little bit in a moment. But, of course, now it's been almost 20 years since your mother went missing, and, of course, you're an adult now. Now that you look back, and I know that you were engaged yourself, you look back at Jeff and your mother's marriage as an adult. What kind of marriage did they have?
I, you know, I think they had a good marriage. I think they argued. Being an adult, I understand that, every relationship you argue. But I feel like a lot of it, there was only a few times it was ever around me. So I feel like if they did ever have any issues, it wasn't really talked about in front of me. But Jeff I think he genuinely loved my mom.
Okay. Now, I don't have it in the notes, but I just have to ask you. And of course, I'm doing, as the listeners know, I've done another interview. Although at the recording of me talking to Sancia, I've not interviewed Marie yet. That's going to happen in a couple days. But both interviews are playing in this episode. But did your mother and Jeff split up for a little bit? Maybe a year or two before she went missing? Did that happen? Do you remember that?
Yeah, they split up. I was in second grade, so I think I was probably about 7 or 8 maybe when they split up.
Okay.
And my mom went and lived with my grandmother.
Okay. Maybe you couldn't understand that at the time of 7 or 8 years old, but now as an adult, do you have any idea why that happened?
I think it was, I don't know for sure because, my mom didn't really talk to me about that kind of stuff at that age, but I think it was kind of over how strict he was with me at the time.
Oh. Okay. All right, and we have to remember that Jeff and your mother had children together as well.
Yeah, they had my sister at the time, and I think they kind of shared custody of Katie. They never went to court or anything that I know of, but I think they just kind of would kind of swap her back and forth and for that year that they were split up, as far as I can remember. Okay,
and then they got back together.
Correct, yep. And then I had my brother.
All right, and then your brother came along. Okay. Would you say that being that once again, the way you understand it now, and we understand you were only 7 or 8 at the time, and none of us when we were 7 or 8 really maybe understood our parents' relationships. Would you say that he changed after you and your mother, after she got back together?
I thought so. I thought he wasn't as strict and was more understanding about certain things. So.
Okay. And once again, we were of course, you were just very young at the time. Let's move on to this. Now, you've already stated you went on this trip, and in fact, you were on this trip when your mother went missing, or in the process of coming back, maybe even just the next day. What do you remember about this trip? Where did you go? Who were you with? How long was it planned ahead of time? What do you remember about it in 2002?
I'm not sure how ahead of time it was planned. I think my grandmother was planning the entire summer to go down in August. And I'm not sure when it was decided that I would go with her. But she had, her and her husband, my step-grandfather, Jimmy, had an RV on a piece of land down there in Florida. Okay. So my grandmother was going down for the month of August, and I just ended up going with her and staying down there for the month with her. Okay.
Was that fun? Have a good time? Do you remember that time vividly?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun trip. My grandmother's husband, he had children down there who also had children who were a couple years older than me. So I spent a lot of time with them. They had a nice house, and I would hang out with my cousin. And she lived down there in Florida, and we'd go swimming and ride bikes, and I remember it being a fun trip.
Okay. So did you live in an RV during that time, or?
Yep. So I would either stay in the RV with my grandma, or sometimes I would stay at my cousin's house there as well.
Okay. Well, for a 10-year-old, that would be fun. Living in a campground or something like that, or in an RV, that'd be a lot of fun. Okay. So you were down there for a month. So it's your mother, Jeff, and the other children still in New York. And how often did you talk to your mother while you were in Florida, which is coincidentally where I live?
I don't remember talking to her that often, but I remember that the cell phone service at the RV was pretty bad. I think actually it was like non-existent. So I think I'd really only talk to Mom like if I was at my cousin's house, or if like me and Grandma went out to get a bite to eat in town and there was cell phone service. Because this was like back in the days when cell phones were like just kind of coming around.
That's true. That's certainly true. I know for purposes of this program, we usually don't start talking about cell phones as being helpful, pieces of evidence till about 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, and I didn't get my first real cell phone until about 2003. So I'm gonna agree with you on that. Cell phone service might have been a little sketchy here in Florida at the time. So you're talking to your mother, maybe not every day, but just keeping in contact, and I'm sure she wanted to hear your voice. Do you remember the last conversation you had with your mom?
Yeah, I remember we were driving home, and I was talking to her on Jimmy, my step-grandfather's cell phone. We were driving up from Florida, and I don't really know where we were, but I remember we were on the way back, and I was just telling her, telling her I loved her. We were on our way. She was telling me she'd be, when she was going to be coming to pick me up, and that I was never going away for a month again. So.
Okay, that's funny. All right, would that have been, do you think that was August 29th, August 28th? What do you think?
I think it was a day or two before the 29th. And I don't remember how many days that was before we got home. Because we drove the RV down so we could stop and sleep. So I can't remember how many days, if we just did the drive in one shot, in like one 24-hour shot, or if we stopped along the way. I can't really remember that. So I don't really remember at what point I talked to her on the way home. I just remember that I did talk to her on the way home.
Okay. Your mother's job, it's been called a per diem job, and you work in the healthcare field now too, do you not?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm a
Okay,
nurse.
just like your mother, right? What do you understand about her time working at the time this per diem set up? Can you maybe explain that to the audience?
Like explain what per diem is?
Yeah, please.
So per diem is basically you kind of work when they need you. So you don't really have a set schedule, but they might say, okay, on Wednesday we're short. Can you work? And you either agree or not. And maybe on Friday they're short, so you pick up Friday. Maybe the next week you don't work at all. But then the following week you pick up 3 shifts because they were short on 3 days. So it's kind of just picking up where you're needed and if you want to pick up.
Okay. And do you know at the time how long she'd had this schedule and how many hours she would work per week on average? Any ideas?
I don't remember, but I remember it feeling like she worked quite a bit.
Okay.
So I didn't even know at the time that she was per diem, because I feel like felt like she was working full time to me.
Yeah. As a 10-year-old, it seems like she was gone away a lot.
Yeah, or sleeping during the day because she had worked late, or whatever the case may be.
Right, and it very well could be that, of course, that would have been the summer of 2002. Maybe other people are going on vacation. She's picking up more hours, maybe.
Yeah, yep.
That's possible.
Could have been the case, for sure.
Okay. So let's move on to this. Do you remember being told that your mother was missing?
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Okay. Did you, at the time, at 10 years old, did you exactly know what that meant? Was that told to you like the next day, August 30th or September 2nd? Or how long did somebody wait to tell you, and who did that?
So I remember my mom was supposed to come pick me up. I'm not sure of the date, but I just remember it being the day. that Mom was supposed to pick me up. And my grandmother said to me, Mom can come get you today. She'll be here tomorrow. And I remember just thinking that was really strange. And I kind of already knew that potentially something was wrong. Because, like I said, when I talked to my mom on the way home, she was like, I can't wait to pick you up. You're not going away again for a month. Like, I missed you, so
Yeah.
it seemed so strange that she wasn't going to be there that day, that something else had come up and she couldn't. And so then the next day, she obviously still was not there to come get me. So my grandmother said to me, she was like, I have to talk to you. They can't find Mom. They can't find her Jeep. She told me that everyone was out looking for her. The police were looking for her. There were search parties looking for her. And my grandma said, we're going to find her. And yes, she'll come home. And that's what my grandmother told me.
Okay. All right. So you remember, but you kind of knew what that meant. I mean, at what point, did you really know? Once again, I'm just trying to understand what your understanding was at the time. Did you fully appreciate how serious it was?
At the time, I think it sounds crazy when I say this, but I knew at the time I was not ever going to see her again. Wow. Like, I just knew that something bad had happened. I don't know. I can't explain how. I just know I had that feeling. Like, that thought popped up into my head because there was no way she would not have been there.
Okay. All right. Did you, when you finally did go back to your house, eventually, did go back, of course, into this new house. You didn't stay there very long, which we'll get into in a moment. But did you eventually at least spend a couple more nights in the new house before you went to live with your father, or what happened in those days?
It's a little fuzzy, but I think I only went back to my house to get my stuff. And I think my dad was on a camping trip, actually. And I think my grandmother brought me and dropped me off with my dad.
Wow. Okay.
I think I just went to the house to get my stuff. I may have stayed there a night, but I don't remember staying there at all after.
Okay. I do want to ask you this, and this is something, once again, we do not do theories on Unfound, as everybody knows, but this is something that came up, and the listeners should know that I spoke to many people who knew Audrey at the time. I'm not going to get into all their names, but several friends, including Marie, who is being officially interviewed for this program, but several of her friends. Of course, I'm talking to Sancia, and at the time of the recording of this interview with Sancia, I'm actually trying to talk to Sergeant Fitzmaurice, who was the original investigator into Audrey's disappearance. I've not been successful to do that yet, but I'm hoping for this, before this episode comes out, that I'll be able to do that. But something that came up, being that I've been to New York, but not this area, but I got a variety of answers to this question, and so I'm just going to ask to you. Your mother's coming home for that night, and I'll be doing a YouTube video for this, but what is your understanding of the route that your mother would have taken home from her work to get home that night?
So I actually looked this up so I could tell you exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So she would have pulled out of the long-term care facility that she worked at and taken a left and gotten on Route 23, and she would have taken that for a few miles, I don't know how many, until she reached 32. She would have taken a right onto 32, and then she would have taken a back road called Caniff Road.
Okay.
It was a right. She would have taken a right on that, and then she would have taken the first left onto Plattekill Road, And then she would follow that all the way to 67, take a left on 67, and the house was down on 67, I don't know, less than a mile probably.
Okay.
And I am not sure if this was the route she took home that night,
Right.
but I had gone to work with my mom before, and I know that was the way she would take home when I was with her on those days to go to work. So,
thank you. Very good. Thank you. As an adult, have you ever driven those routes yourself?
yeah. Yeah.
All right. How would you explain those routes? Of course, I know part of it is 4-lane, but once you get off that Route 23, I think they are 2 lanes. Windy roads, lots of trees, lots of houses. How would you explain them to the audience?
So they're not really windy, too bad. Route 23, I think that's the first one she would have on, is straight. It's like a bypass. So that's pretty straight. And then 32 is maybe a little windy, and there is some bodies of water. I think the Catskill Creek is there.
Okay.
So there is a bridge that crosses it, but there is guardrails on the bridge. And it's pretty decently populated. I mean, it is a rural area, but it's not like you don't pass a house for miles.
Okay.
And then the back roads, they're a little windy, and it's all woods on the Caniff and then the Platte Kill Road. It's all woods there.
Your opinion, being that you grew up there, and once again, I understand you were 10 when she went missing, but you still kind of lived in the area with your father. Has that area, in your opinion, changed very much since 2002? Or is it about the same?
No, not really. I mean, there's some more businesses built up on the bypass. But other than that, not really.
All right, so those, what we might call those secondary roads, about the same. Okay, thank you. All right, and like I said, I will be doing a YouTube video to show that that particular route for that Sancia just described. The issue with this disappearance is in talking to other people. Like I've said, they've given me different routes. So we're going to explore that in this video because I think it's something that needs to be looked at. Of course, we're always open to all ideas with regarding the facts of any disappearance.
Yeah, and like I said, like I don't know if that's the route she took home. I just know that is the route she had taken home from work in the past when I was with her.
That's totally fine. Thank you. And I appreciate that because, once again, 99.99% of the people probably listening have not been on those roads. Maybe they've been to Catskill, New York, in that general area, but probably not on those roads. Okay, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Okay. So, as you've already stated, though, after your mother went missing, you did not continue to live in this new house with the pink bedroom. You went to live with your dad. Any particular reason for that?
I think just my dad is the next person who would have custody of me. I think my dad wanted me to go stay with him and live with him.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And he ended up raising you?
Yep,
all right.
He did.
Okay. And did you keep in contact, come 11 years old, 12, 13, did you stay in contact with Jeff and your, I guess they would be your half-siblings? Did you stay in contact with them?
Yeah, I did. I saw them birthdays, Christmas, other holidays. My grandmother would have us all over. My mom's mom would have us all over, so I saw them there. So yeah, I did. I stayed close with them and in contact.
Okay. Did you ever go over to the house? I realize it's, at least for a while, somebody would have to drive you, but did you ever go over there to hang out with your other siblings or get together with them? Or what was the depth of this contact?
I would go over there sometimes for birthday parties. I would go over to the house. Sometimes they would have certain holidays there. So yeah, I would go over there. I was just there actually when I was home in September.
Oh, you were? Okay. Okay. And back at the time, once again, realizing 10, 11, did you ever hear any of the adults talk about your mother's disappearance and investigation? Who, I guess what I'm asking is, who kept you updated on any work that was being done? Of course, you would be a very interested party, even though you were only 10, 11, 12 years old.
Honestly, the people who got me updated were my grandmother, my mom's mom, and Marie, really.
Who was that again, please?
My grandmother, my mom's mother,
Okay.
Charley, and Marie.
Okay. All right. So they kept you updated. And I have to ask this, even though he is your father, but I'm not looking for anything other than, do you remember back at the time? I don't want to get into anything now because it's been like almost 20 years, but back at the time, did your father ever offer up his own theory as to what happened to Audrey? I'm not asking for what Jeff thought. I'm asking, did you and your father ever talk about Audrey's disappearance, if you feel comfortable talking about it?
My dad thought, he thought something bad had happened to her. I think he feels like someone did this to her, that it wasn't an accident. That's his theory.
Okay. All right. I'll just leave it at that. That's totally fine. When did you, of course, we know that, for example, Marie has been very involved, as have been other friends of your mother's over the years. When did you, how old were you when you started, maybe communicating with them one-on-one regarding what they did over these years regarding your mother's disappearance?
I was always very involved with whatever they were doing. I feel like Marie kept me pretty involved, like the bike runs. I was always there. I was helping out. Candlelight vigils. I was helping, with whatever. She'd always give me little jobs, passing out flyers. Going to the New York State Missing Persons Day and setting up a booth. I was always pretty involved in all those events and different things.
Okay. And they, of course, then Marie and these others and your grandparents kept you updated.
Yeah, I think to the best of their ability, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever, over the years, just you, without any of her friends who I know have done fine work, have you ever had any one-on-one conversations with the New York State Police or any police agency regarding your mother's disappearance?
Well, right now, I think I'm like the main person of contact with the police.
Okay.
I started talking to them. We had a lead a few years back where they searched a house and drained a pond. And they thought in connection with my mom, and I kind of started talking to them after that, and I was in my early 20s when that happened. And then ever since then, I've just kind of stayed in contact. And her current investigator, his name's Investigator Callahan. He's been good. I have his personal number. I can text him if anything I think of anything, or if I just want to know about something. So that's been good.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay. And so you were raised by your father and just continued on with your life. And like you said, now you're the point person. And, of course, all these friends of Audrey's also are staying involved as well. You and Jeff, what kind of relationship do you have now in 2021?
We have a good relationship. I was just home, and like I said, I was over at the house, and I was there with my brother, my sister, and him, and I feel like he genuinely cares about me and is happy to see me when I'm there. So yeah, we have a good relationship.
Okay. Does the topic of your mother's disappearance ever come up?
So we have never talked about my mother's disappearance, honestly, ever. We have talked about my mom, and he talks about my mom, or like certain memories or things about her, but we've never talked about her disappearance.
Okay. I even have it in the outline. Important question, once again, once again in my position, I just have to ask these things. Important question. Over the
Yeah.
last 20 years, have you ever heard or seen any facts that would cause you to believe Jeff had something to do with your mother's disappearance? Anything?
So this is kind of a hard question to answer because I feel like people have told me things over the years that don't make him sound great, but I don't know if it's an actual fact.
Yeah.
So, yes, I've been told things, but nothing that I know is like 100% concrete.
But I'm just asking about you personally. Anything you've heard or seen? Once again, you've had some interactions with Jeff over the last 20 years, and I want you to continue to do that. Okay, I realize this is a difficult question. I realize that you have two half siblings, and he's their father, and all of that. But just you personally, have you ever seen any facts or seen anything that kind of caused you to pause over the last 20 years and think, well?
Okay, I think I understand now. You mean like me personally?
Yeah, because I realize what everybody else says because I've talked to them. I'm just interested with you. Yeah, I'm just interested with you.
No, I've never seen or heard anything myself. Anything has been told to me by someone else.
Okay, thank you. Now, I do have to ask you this, being that it is a news story that goes way back to 2002 and involves your grandfather. He actually says in a news article, once again, if this was not in a news article, I would never bring it up, but I have to ask because it was written, that he says he saw your grandfather says he saw your mother's purse and other things that I guess she would normally have in her Jeep in the house after her disappearance. Have you ever spoken to your grandfather about this?
Yeah, I remember him saying that he saw it there. I wasn't there. I don't remember seeing it, but I do remember him saying that he saw it there.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed away a while ago. I think I was 18 or 19.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Were you aware that he made this comment to a reporter back at that time, or is that something you just discovered later, or?
Honestly, I didn't know that he was the one that said that. Okay. That said that comment came from.
Okay.
But I remember him talking about it. I just didn't know that that's where that came from.
Okay. All right, because that is in an article that I did find, once again, using newspapers.com. And of course, it doesn't sound good, but on the other hand, I realize that sometimes family members make up things because they suspect things. They sometimes don't feel that investigation's going in the right direction, and so they'll make up saying things. That's common too. I wasn't there, but being that it's an official news article that I guess would not paint Jeff in the best of light, that's why I feel like I have to ask you this. But you were aware of it, but you never spoke to your grandfather one-on-one about it.
I remember him talking about it, but it wasn't like in a conversation with me, like one-on-one. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. I just, you realize this, of course, she's still missing 19 years later. If those things, I would say if those things were true, then I would wonder why this is still unsolved 19 years later. But maybe they are true. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's an official news story. Something else I want to ask you about, and this did come up with a couple of discussions with her friends very recently, just this past Friday, was your mother's health. That she was supposed to be having a doctor's appointment the next day, and even this friend of hers just a few days ago said that she was very worried about this mammogram. Is that something that you knew anything about? Somebody told you about it? Do you know anything about this?
No, my mom hadn't said anything to me about that. I didn't learn about that until after my mom went missing.
Okay. All right. So, did your grandmother have right here in the notes? Did your grandmother ever say anything to you after your mother went missing that she had, she was worried about how this test was going to come out? Anything like
No,
that?
I think Marie told me that, actually.
Okay, Marie told you. Very good. And we've already talked about the police, and it seems if he gave you his number, the current investigator's number, it sounds to me like you have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good relationship for the most part. They seem to answer me. They don't always get back to me right away, but they do get back to me and answer my questions or my calls or my text, whatever it may be.
Okay. I do want to ask you one specific question regarding the police, and once again, the listeners know I don't like to get into this too much because I never want any law enforcement agency to feel that, if they're going to say something to a guest, that it's automatically going to go right to me, and I don't want to upset that relationship that any family has with law enforcement. But I would like to ask you one question because this has been another prominent piece of information that multiple people have told me about. There is talk of this, once again, I'll do this on the YouTube video. There's talk that this transmission place, auto parts place, something like this, has a video camera out in front of its place. And on the night of your mother's disappearance, that a Jeep that could very well be hers went by and then stopped somewhere, I guess within camera distance, viewing distance of this building, and then stopped for a while, then continued on, something like this. Have you ever spoken to New York State Police about this? And have you ever seen this video? Do you know anything about this?
I have never spoke to the police about that video. I have never seen it, but I have heard about it. Someone saying that it was a thing, that video existed.
Okay, and so that's never come up in any conversation you've had with law enforcement regarding your mother's disappearance?
No, and I think I heard about that video before I was really communicating with the police myself.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to ask you that. Maybe that will give you something to do, to ask them about that, because I would certainly like to see that video if they'd like to show it. I have my doubts, but maybe seeing this video might change my mind. But if you do get to see it or ask them about it, I would certainly appreciate it if you could get back to me about that, because it is a big question mark.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The last, of course, we just passed the 19-year anniversary at the end of August. How hard has this been, Sancia?
Well, it's been very hard. It's completely life altering, changing. Not knowing what happened is hard, and not knowing, where she is, and not having any justice or answers, and just the constant question mark can be tough. It has the potential to really eat you alive if you let it.
Yeah.
So it's very tough. So I think I've been lucky enough that I have a good support system. I have a good family. I have good friends. I'm thankful for all of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. How important has your dad been over the last 19 years? Of course, he was in a position, he was only seeing you like every other weekend, as many custody situations are, and then all of a sudden he's with you, you're with him full time. That must have been a big deal for him now to take care of you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little tough for both of us in the beginning. I don't think he expected to have me full time all the time. And, then on top of that, I was an angry 11-year-old girl, understandably. So, I don't think it was easy for him. And, it wasn't easy for me, but he has been and continues to be a great dad.
Even though he and your mother were not together anymore, he's been very supportive of you and trying to figure out what happened to her.
Oh yeah. My dad loved my mom, and I remember him being visibly upset when my mom went missing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. You had a good dad to take the reins there until you could take
for
care of
sure.
yourself. And at least, and of course, you got to stay in the same area too. You didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Please.
I did have to switch schools eventually, but yeah, I mean, same, not far from where I grew up.
Okay. I'll ask you. I know I'm going to ask this of Marie too, but is there a website, Facebook page, anything like that set up for your mother and her disappearance?
Yep, there is a Facebook page. It's I think it's just Audrey May Herron, missing mother of 3. And I can send you the link to that on Facebook if you'd like. I
think I already have it, but we always like to talk
perfect.
about it during these interviews so people can right away go there. So, okay, and I will, of course, be linking to that before this episode comes out to make sure everybody can see it. Okay. Sancia, any final words before we complete this interview?
No, I don't think so. Just thank you for putting my mom's case on your podcast.
You're very welcome. That's what I do, Sancia. I hope we can keep in touch.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Okay. Thanks for being on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And those were my conversations with Marie Parker, one of Audrey's best friends who I interviewed on October 31st, 2021, and Sancia Court, Audrey's daughter from her first marriage, who I interviewed on October 27th, 2021. I thank them both for being on this episode. But you should know, I spoke to a lot of people about this disappearance. No fewer than 5 other friends of Audrey's, including the co-worker who walked with her out to the parking lot that night. In addition, I spoke to the current investigator from the New York State Police, Mike Gabriel. We covered 4 topics that I will discuss in a moment. Before I get to that, though, I urge you to check out the map analysis I did for Audrey's disappearance on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube. Warning, it's a long video because I show the different routes discussed in the interviews. I also point out possible alternate routes Audrey could have taken. And due to convenient timing, I explore a theory recently put forth by an amateur sleuth, in which he states he has found Audrey's Jeep in a creek using Google Satellite View. I will show you the spot he is talking about. Okay, my talk with the investigator Mike Gabriel from the New York State Police. And I'm just going to do this off the top of my head using a few notes. This is not scripted. After speaking with all of these people who knew Audrey, I had narrowed it down to 4 topics I wanted to discuss with the New York State Police. And it took a while to find the correct investigator. Sergeant Fitzmaurice, although he is still with the New York State Police, Audrey's disappearance is not his responsibility anymore. Even though, if you go back to 2002, even up to just within the last few years, he is considered to be an investigator on her disappearance. But then it went to another investigator whose last name was Callahan. Yes, really, just like Dirty Harry. But then just recently, a new person is responsible for Audrey's file, and his name is Mike Gabriel. And I had to call the New York State Police 3 or 4 times before I found the right person, and that person called me back. And I want you to know all of my interactions with the New York State Police were excellent. Okay, so I don't want you to think, well, you had to call 3 or 4 times. I'm just telling you how many times I called. That is not a direct reflection on their customer service. I think it was just that I was asking for the wrong person, and they're busy. So here were the 4 different topics. The video that was discussed from this automotive place. And I will show that if you watch the YouTube video. I show that place in the video. Number 2, Audrey's father's comment about seeing her purse and cigarettes in the house after Audrey disappeared. Topic number 3 was a comment by a former New York State Police investigator in which the comment, "Something horrible happened that was nefarious." Yes, a police officer said that in a Crime Watch Daily article. And number 4, the whole thing about Jeff's business partner, these quote-unquote Russians. Did the New York State Police look into this? Here's what Mike Gabriel said, and here's what Mike Gabriel said, Investigator Mike Gabriel, and I spoke to him on November 10th of 2021 regarding the video from the automotive place known as JR Transmissions. It might have had a different name at the time. That video was unhelpful. What Investigator Gabriel said was that the video was like on a 3-minute cycle, not a 72-hour cycle. So what that meant was every 3 minutes, the video would tape over itself. I think that's what he meant. And so it was totally unhelpful back in 2002. So it was not helpful at all. So I think what this shows is how things can get blown out of proportion. There was the belief out there that it showed a Jeep and it stopped down the road. And I have to admit, from day one, it didn't make a lot of sense to me because it's at night. Where this Jeep allegedly stopped was like 500 feet down the road, and how could that be seen at night? And it turns out that even that was extravagant thinking. In the end, there was nothing on that video that could help with Audrey's disappearance at all. At all. Number 2, what Audrey's father saw. This is what Investigator Gabriel said. Now, you have to remember, he is the new person. He was not there in 2002. But in talking to Sergeant Fitzmaurice, who was there at the time, this is my understanding. This is what Investigator Gabriel told me, is that they were aware of what Audrey's father saw. However, in their notes, he said he saw an ID and a wallet at the house. However, Investigator Gabriel would not go any further than that. He would not verify or not verify that that is what they discovered. That's as much as he would say on that topic. But I think what it says is that believing that the father saw her cigarettes in her purse, in their notes, it was something different. So there's a discrepancy there. I'm not sure what to make of it, but they would not verify. For example, Investigator Gabriel did not say, yes, we looked into it and it could not be verified. He did not say, yes, they looked into it at the time and they did find those things. He said neither. He would not support or deny what Audrey's father said. But in their notes are a little bit different than what has been in the news articles since 2002. You can take that for what it's worth. Next, we talked about this Lieutenant Kuzminski, who made this comment about, to read it again, something horrible happened that was nefarious. That was a quote. This lieutenant does not work for the state police in New York anymore. In fact, he's retired. He's been retired for about 3 years. He is now the sheriff of Greene County, which just happens to be the county where Audrey lived. And I was given his phone number. However, I was not able to reach him before this episode came out. Should I happen to get to talk to him and ask him about why he made this comment using the word nefarious regarding Audrey's disappearance, if I do get to talk to him about that, all of you will surely know about that. And then as far as the Russians, in speaking to Investigator Gabriel, it was a very quick no comment. He and I, for maybe 30 seconds, did have a discussion about missing persons cases where vehicles also are missing. I stated that with my experience with disappearances over the last 5 years, they are very, very rare. He agreed. And I stated, I think that we've had 6 of them on Unfound, and he was not surprised by that. And then he brought up, but it's not unusual for cars to be found years and years later. I said, you're right. In fact, I told him about Esther Westenbarger's car being found in Indiana in that retention pond, and I explained to him what happened. I have to admit that he did not give me any feeling in any direction as to his belief regarding what happened to Audrey or what the New York State Police Department thinks after all these years. He played it pretty neutral. In fact, I said something to the effect of, it. In my experience, I have to believe that she really did drive off the road. And I don't theorize on this program, but I'm just telling you what I said to him. And really, he had no response to that. He did not say, yeah, that could be, or I don't think so, or anything. He really did not say much to that, which shouldn't surprise anybody. That's how these things usually go. So that was my conversation with him. Now, you should know what happened was I had talked to him one time, and being that he was like the new guy, he took the notes from what I wanted to talk about, and he went to maybe to the files, to Sergeant Fitzmaurice, maybe to other people to ask them about these topics. And then he called me back 2 days later. And that's how we got to discuss these 4 different topics. So that's how that all happened. So that was my conversation with the now new investigator who was responsible for Audrey's disappearance. He also wanted to know when the episode would be coming out and how to listen to it, so I told him that as well. Now I want to talk a bit about the topic of missing people and their missing vehicles. Yes, I know this episode is already long, but you know I don't care about that. We cover as much as we can until we're done, and not a second before. So, why are missing vehicles an element of less than 3% of disappearances overall? Now, before you confuse what I'm saying, I realize we've had vehicles that have been damaged. Jeremy Burt's, Tyler North's, Dorianne Myers's, as examples. They were all torched. We've also had episodes where vehicles have been found in unusual locations. Travis Murrow's, Rebecca Henderson's, David Hardy Jr.'s, as examples. So cars certainly play a significant role in many cases, to the point that the evidence collected from them has become controversial. Tom Brown's disappearance and death, for example. Yet, the reason I believe we talk so little about missing vehicles is because cars and trucks are not easy to hide or completely destroy. They are large. They don't deteriorate like a living thing. They can't be carried off into the wilderness like a human can. Sure, there is that exception, like Eric Franks' car, which sat in Gerald Rutledge's garage for several years. Something that no one, including investigators, suspected. But my prediction is we will go the next 5 years and not hear about another situation like that, whether Unfound covers the disappearance or not. It's that rare. Really, though, I think the main reason cars so often don't go missing with the missing person is because I continue to believe of the disappearances where we believe foul play occurred, that this foul play is spur of the moment and not planned. And it's tough to get rid of a vehicle quickly without thinking it out for days or weeks beforehand. And even when a disappearance/murder is planned, for example, in Tyler North's case, his ex-wife and her boyfriend couldn't make his truck disappear as well. All they could do is set fire to it. What this also means is I reject the idea that many of these missing vehicles that can be attached to missing people end up in crushers and junkyards. Why? Because if that were the case, that would mean every junkyard owner in the United States is corrupt. Seriously, that's how much I've read about this idea on web sleuths and elsewhere over the years. It's like the missing person was fed to hogs urban legend I hear from guests so much. What do I tell them? If that's the truth, then every hog farmer in the United States must be a killer, which is surely not factual. But that is how much I hear about it in doing what I do. I'm not saying cars have never been crushed. It's probably happened once. But I think what we've shown on Unfound, and what Adventures with Purpose has shown on its videos, is that most of the time when vehicles disappear with their owners, the cars disappear due to an accident or suicide involving the missing person. The big question: how does this all relate to Audrey's disappearance? I guess it depends on your perspective. On one hand, Jeff and Audrey did have relationship problems at one time. That he would have known her schedule for that week. That he would have known when she would be home that night. And we can't forget what Audrey's father said about her items being in the house. On the other hand, are we to believe Jeff could successfully get rid of a Jeep, but forget to get rid of Audrey's other things? How did he make a Jeep disappear while having 2 small children in the house? With the planning that would have been involved, shouldn't the New York State Police stumbled upon some piece of evidence that showed pre-planning on Jeff's part? Of course, we can't forget about third-party involvement either. A stalker, a carjacking. I guess what I'm saying is this is all way more complicated than going from A to B. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I am Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.